You are about to see a portion of a session in which I go over an assessment report with Jeff and Valerie. I've met with Jeff and Valerie for 2 sessions in which we've assessed their relationship. They've filled out questionnaires, we've talked, we've gone through a structured assessment, and now in between sessions I've written a report to them about the way that I see their marriage. They've been married about 10 years and they have a lot going for the relationship, but they've had a major trust issue come up lately, and also they have differences in the amount of intimacy that they would like to see in the relationship and the way that they see it now. Those are what I see as the major issues with Jeff and Valerie. What we're going to do is we're going to pick up in the middle of the session. We've already exchanged pleasantries. I have given them the assessment report, gave each one a copy, and they've just finished reading it, and now I'm about ready to go over this report with them. Okay, so have both of you finished reading this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as you read over this report, you probably had some reactions. Let me just kind of break it into pieces here and ask you about the strengths. Okay, so as you read over that assessment of your strengths, what did you think? Did that fit with the way that you see your relationship?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that we have a commitment to each other, and we do have the energy to make it work and the desire to make it work is important. I think, and you put that in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then also the values that we share.
Uh-huh, mm-hmm.
That's also true.
Yeah.
And for me, it was really about just how important our daughter is, and that we really do care about one another, and our relationship is really important to us.
Right. Yeah, I was really impressed as we've met together the last couple of weeks about how you are committed to each other, and although you see that there are difficulties and you want to work them out, you want to put the energy in, and I think that's a very good sign. The values that you share that you think will be a help, tell me a little bit more about that.
I think, well, first and foremost, what she said, our commitment to our daughter,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
the way that we want to raise her, our commitment to church.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be a strength for us. I think we both have a good idea of what we want it to look like, as far as emotional communication and things like that go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Those kind of things.
So do you have that same feeling that those values would be a real strength for you?
Mm-hmm. I really think they are. I really think that's what helps us in our relationship.
Good. Okay, well let's look at these areas for potential change. So I noted that there are probably areas of love and being sure that you don't devalue each other and that you show your value of each other more. The work that you put in the relationship, and also kind of the faith you have and the trust that you have in each other, that each of those is an area that we could focus on. But I'd like to get your evaluation. What do you think are the major areas that we should work on if we do agree to counseling?
I think for me, one of the biggest things is our sexual intimacy. It hasn't been, the way it was at the beginning of the relationship, or even a little after the beginning of the relationship. And it's something that it's hard for me, and I know the emotional part for her. I mean, I feel that too, but the sexual thing is.
Okay. So that's definitely, the sexual is definitely a concern. You're concerned about the emotional relationship also, but you see that being of more concern to Valerie than it is to you.
Probably.
Okay. Valerie, what about you? How do you look at your relationship and the ways that you could improve?
The two most important things to me right now are just our emotional intimacy and rebuilding trust.
And so the emotional intimacy, for you, I'm not sure if you're separating that from the sexual intimacy, or if sexual intimacy, if you see it as part of the emotional intimacy.
I think I'm kind of separating it a little bit because he mostly initiates, and I usually say whether or not I want to have sex at that time, but I feel like every time he touches me that he wants to have sex, and so I guess that's where my disconnect is right now.
Right. So for you, you're focusing mostly on getting this emotional bond repaired, and maybe some of the damage that was done in the trust issue that came up earlier. And the sexual intimacy you see as something that is much more concern to Jeff than to you. You both identified intimacy as really one of the key issues that you have. And one of the things you did was fill out a little questionnaire about your intimacy. And I just wanted to show you what I did in graphing that. So I've made up a graph to show how you answered each of the 5 areas of intimacy. So the 5 areas were emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy, social intimacy, that is doing things together and with other people, intellectual intimacy, sharing your ideas with each other, and then recreational intimacy, things that you do together recreationally. So although there were some tiny differences, there really weren't really big differences in social intimacy, intellectual, and recreational. But what you showed me on the graphs that you filled out were that you both had a desire for pretty much perfect emotional intimacy. That's what you wanted. But you had a big difference in the way that you rated the relationship right now. So what you showed me on your forms was that, Valerie, you thought that you were down at about a level of 10 out of 100. You wanted to be at 100. Jeff, you saw the relationship as about 50. You want to be 100. So you don't quite perceive the relationship being in the same place right now. Does that surprise you?
I guess not, no. I mean, I know that the emotional thing is something that, I mean, it's important to both of us, but I know that it's really important to her. And the difference that you're showing on your graph is that you evaluate where you are a little differently. So, you say, well, I know that this is more important to Valerie than it is to me. She's saying, this is really troubling to me. This is only 10 out of 100. I don't know if you hear her saying how much it troubles her.
I'd agree. I really feel like we're really not that emotionally close right now. And yeah, I just agree.
Right. So I think that the really hopeful sign is that you both really want to get to a very, very good emotional relationship. And, you know, Jeff, I'm just wanting you to be sure that you hear her, that it bothers her a lot, you know, perhaps more than it bothers you. And so the other area is the sexual relationship. And we have a little different pattern here. Both of you don't think that the sexual relationship is working very well. So both of you rated at about 10 or 15 on a 100-point scale. So it's pretty close agreement that it's not working well. But for Jeff, he wants to be at like 100, and Valerie, you rated yours as, you know, I'd just like to get to about 70. So we have a difference here again now into where you want to go, where you want to get to. You know, you pretty much see things the same way. You want to get to a different place. So this is difficult because where should you get? What is your, how do you all react to this?
I mean, I guess we'll both get as well as we can get, you know what I mean? It may be something that's more important to me, but I know that it's not completely unimportant to her, so I know that we'd both be working to get where we could get, you know.
And you had a good sexual relationship early in the marriage, and you both see that it's gone downhill. But what you hope for seems to be a lot lower standard than what Jeff is hoping for. Is this going to be a real problem?
I'm not sure. I just know that we have differences in how often we desire to be intimate, and so I want it a lot less than he does, and so I don't know if that's part of our difference. I'm not sure.
And I don't know if what we're measuring here with by asking you about an ideal is hope. You know, maybe like if y'all were able to have just great sex as much as you had it in the beginning, you know, it's like both people would be, I'm happy about this. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe not. Life changes. So, but we might be measuring here. I don't think we can get to the place where we were before. And Jeff is like, this is really important. I really want to get to that point.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
So I think this is something that we could explore in counseling. You know, how far can we improve the relationship? And I think that there are definitely ways we can improve the sexual relationship. And where do we want to get to? And can we find a place where both of us are satisfied? Let me move to the next section of this feedback. I made some suggestions for what we might work on if you agree to counseling. And as you know, we didn't really agree to counseling. We just agreed to do an assessment, see where things went. So what did you see as the major targets that I was focusing on? Valerie, what about you? What did you see?
Communication, and that we would try to improve our sexual intimacy.
And sexual intimacy. And anything else?
And beginning to work on forgiveness. And I'd like that would be the way that we could rebuild that trust.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Jeff, what about you? How did you read this?
Well, I think when you said to show patience with each other, that was pretty important. And then, also how like when we have better communication and I guess better emotional intimacy, the sexual intimacy will kind of, I guess, come with it, or that'll kind of come out of that, I guess.
Okay, so my perspective is, if we work in counseling together, if you think that that's worth pursuing, I would see us working mostly on restoring the emotional bond. And I think that that's going to take two forms in the main part. It's going to be working both to get a more agreed upon sexual relationship and to get more ways of showing emotional intimacy in a way that both of you can appreciate. In doing that, we'll work on the forgiveness, work on communicating in a way that's helpful, work on resolving differences when they show up, because if you get upset, as you've reported that you do get upset, then that is going to have an impact on your emotional intimacy and also desire to have sex. So I see us really focusing on the core issue of emotion, but getting at that through communication, resolving conflict, and forgiving. So this is the way that I would suggest that we go about counseling if we want to do that. So you all have thought now for a couple of weeks about whether you might want to continue on with counseling, and now that you've seen this assessment, I just wonder what you're thinking about counseling at this point.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go through with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we definitely want to put in that work. So.
Okay, so that's good. The way that I will see this is, I'm notoriously not perfect at predicting how long people will want to work and will continue to improve their relationship. But I would suggest that we agree to meet together for 10 weeks or 10 sessions. Occasionally something happens and you have to cancel. But say 10 sessions over approximately 10 weeks. And after that, on the 10th session, I'll give you another progress report. And you can make a decision at that point whether you think it's worth continuing or whether you want to end and try to continue on your own. Does that sound like a reasonable plan?
10 weeks, you said?
Mm-hmm.
About 10 weeks?
About 10 weeks.
Sounds good.
Okay. So y'all have put a lot of years into this relationship. You've got a lot of investments. Elizabeth, a big investment together that you both value. And so I want to get your commitment on the work that it will take to make this relationship really improve. And I'm just wanting a kind of a minimal commitment. 10 years you put into this. Are you willing to put a work week of effort into trying to make this better?
Yeah.
Okay. So what that's going to mean is 10 hours of meeting together, and then about 30 additional hours where you're working together hard on your relationship, trying to make it together, trying to make it better. Okay?
I think we can probably handle that. I think.
Yeah. So it's a big investment that you have in the relationship, and this is not a lot. to put in to give it a good try. Okay, well, I think then we can end for the day, and we'll want to set up a time and maybe a schedule of times when we can meet.
Okay, great.
Okay, do you have anything before we end? Do you have anything else you'd like to say today?
I don't think so. On my part.
Okay, good. We have a plan.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.